Hi, this is Chantel. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about modernism. I'll talk to you some about the art and also the architecture. Modernism is kind of the period of a bunch of isms. There's a variety of styles that we've categorized under this style. And so we're going to take us from about 1890 to about 1950. I'm going to go start with a group of artists that are post-impressionists. We talked about impressionism last time and the study of light and using paint to try and capture what it is that we see and how we see things in terms of light. This is a painting by Vincent van Gogh. He's one of our post-impressionistic. They took us out of the impressionistic category because it's not so much about trying to capture what we see, but we're starting to move into what we see, those nuances between what I see versus what you see, which starts to get into a little bit of the psychology. Post-impressionists tend to use a lot of smaller brush strokes, especially Van Gogh. His paintings, his oil paintings are very thickly layered. When you see one in person, it almost looks like the texture is tactile. You could almost feel his paintings. They're so thickly layered. Let's see here. Here is Van Gogh's room at Arles. You can see we're also starting to get into some flattening, which is going to inspire some of our modern artists a little more. And this is his room at the asylum, and it kind of shows how his emotional state is, in addition to just capturing the reality of the space. We now move on to Cezanne. He is another post-impressionist painter. You can see, again, we've got quite a bit of flattening of the surfaces. He's more interested in capturing what the space feels like than what the space looks like. This is going to be a great inspiration for the Cubist painters. In fact, both Matisse and Picasso, when they spoke of Cezanne, he said he is the father of us all. You can see that Cezanne starts to use brighter colors than we would normally see in our world. And we see some of that in Van Gogh as well. Moving on, we have Picasso. He's probably one of the most known figures in the modern movement. He was very prolific, created many works. This is a painting of his, and I'll probably pronounce it wrong, Le Demoiselles d'Avignon, painted in 1907. Picasso was inspired a lot by the masks in African art, and you can see that we've got two figures here who are wearing masks, and you can see he's also playing a lot with the flattening of the figures. Picasso believed that all art should be making some sort of a statement, and he said it should be subversive. Let's see here. Oh, interesting side note on this painting. It's about 8 feet by about 7 feet. He did some pretty large scale works. This is a Cubist work, his violin, and you can see that it is a violin, but it has been taken apart visually, and the shadows are being denied and flattened, and it's kind of deconstructed and done in a rectilinear format, and that's where we get a lot of the term cubism from. Here's one of his most famous works, Guernica. Guernica, this painting was done in all black and white and gray. And so this is a color depiction of the piece, done in 1937. This is 11 and a half feet tall by 25 and a half feet wide. This is a painting which is, it kind of crosses the zone between what we would categorize as cubist painting, because it's got that flattening, but it's also getting us into expressionism, because it's very emotional. The visual elements express feeling in addition to the subject matter itself. This was in reaction to the Nazi bombing of a Basque town of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. The men were away that day, and so when the Nazis bombed, it was almost exclusively women and children in the market square, and it was a pretty horrific scene. And Picasso wanted to depict the horrors of war and how horrific it was. An interesting note, the bombing itself happened in April of 1937, and he was commissioned to do this work, and it took him 35 days from start to finish to do the entire work. And another note on this, when Picasso was living in Nazi-occupied Paris during World War II, a German officer saw this work, and he asked Picasso, "Did you do that?" And Picasso replied, "No, you did." Kind of interesting note there. So yeah, Picasso. This is a work by Matisse, Henri Matisse. He was really into bright colors and to capturing emotion and feeling and perception through color. He is the father of what's known as the Fauvist movement. One of his critics, when he saw some of Matisse's works, he said that it looked like it was painted by wild beasts or fauves. And so Matisse and his peers embraced that term. And so this is the Fauvist movement. This is Madame Matisse, painted in 1905. Some people refer to it as the green line because of the green down the center of the face. This is one of his famous works of art, The Dance, 1909. Again, you can see bright colors and a flattening, almost cartoony in nature. Our next artist that we're going to talk about is Kandinsky. I really liked this statement of his. He said, "Color is the keyboard, the eyes are the hammers, the soul is the piano with many strings. The artist is the hand that plays, touching one key or another purposely to cause vibrations in the soul." This was his comment on the effect of color. This is another one of his works in 1911. Kandinsky moves into a school of art that is then defined as non-objective. You can see, unlike our other artists where we could see, in Matisse, the last one we just looked at, the dance, although it's flattened and cartoony, it's still people dancing. You can see what the subject is. You can see what the objects are. Kandinsky, on the other hand, it's art that's just art. This painting, drawing is it's not intended to be something. In fact, the title of this one is Composition 8, and it's not supposed to be something other than what it is. It is a work of art. This is another Kandinsky. This is called Dominant Curve. This is from 1936. You can see he works in very bright colors, very flat, and yeah, it's just about the work of art. A sculptor that's in this non-objective category is Brancusi. This is his Bird in Space. They date this one from 1932 to 1940. It was developed over a long period of time. There are several versions of Bird in Space. One of the things that's amazing about Brancusi's work is once he finished it, he polished it to the point that it's extremely shiny and reflective and smooth. And that's one of the things that some of the minimalists did, is they paid such attention to detail that sometimes it seems very simple to us, and we feel like, is that really art? It's so basic, but it's so basic and so elegant. So this is Bird in Space, and this is another one of Brancusi's works. He called this one Flying Turtle, and it is dated 1940 to 1945. So that's non-objective art. We also have expressionistic art, which is more related to the sense of emotion. One of our things that happens during this period of time is a lot more study on psychology. We've got Freud, who's looking at our inner stories. We have, a whole variety of people who are trying to understand how we feel and how we see things. This is frequently titled the Madonna. It's one of Munch's paintings. This one is dated around 1892 to 1895. He has many, many versions of this. Some versions a little more disturbing than others. Again, you can see that this is not non-objective. You can see that it is a person, but where she ends and the environment begins is kind of difficult to see that division, and it's also very much around emotion and feeling. Most famous work is The Scream, which many people saw as a symbol of the modern condition. It's pure emotion and feeling. He's not trying to give us a realistic scene of a man on a bridge. It's emotion. And that's what expressionism is about, is using art as a way to convey emotion. A lot of these artists are reacting to World War I, and then later they react to World War II. One of the things that was very powerful for the art movement is the fact that World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. It was a very rough, very violent war. And then it ends, but it doesn't really end. It's just technically ending. And then we move into World War II, and people start to question, how can such things happen? How can we have something like a World War I? How can we have that if there is a God? And so people started to question, is there a God? Or have we been abandoned? And so philosophy takes us down that track. And art is really questioning everything, and that sense of alienation and abandonment. The Dada movement viewed art as chance, as an accident. And I am running out of time on my screencast, so I'm going to end this one here, and then I will start part 2 in the same spot in just a moment. So we'll end this one, and then we'll set up number 2. Thank you.